Okay, so we have a problem here, not specifically a optimization problem, but uses similar tools. So they're asking about a rectangle, 14 centimeters longer than it is wide. What I would start off with is just a quick diagram. So we have our rectangle here, and we can say, well, width W and length L. And we could stop and say we're told that the rectangle is 14 centimeters longer than it is wide. So what we could say is that L, another way of writing L, is W plus 14. Now, some people, and this is a great way to do it, would say let W equal the width, and then the W plus 14 equals the length. So whether you put it into your diagram or whether you show it as a let statement, either way is perfectly good. Now, we're told also that the rectangle has a diagonal, and the diagonal, if we were to draw that in, goes straight across there, and that is 26. So looking at this, we should be thinking, okay, well, that's a right triangle in there with the diagonal being the hypotenuse. And so Pythagorean theorem might come to mind. So what we could do with Pythagorean theorem, c squared equals a squared plus b squared. And so we know that c being 26 squared is equal to, now, when we go and apply our a and b, we're going to do it all in terms of w. So w squared plus the length squared, w plus 14 all squared. All right. And so 26 squared, 676, which you can get from the calculator. And then we have w squared, and the w plus 14, don't write it as w squared plus 14 squared. Remember that we would, it might be best just to write it out just to make it mostly clear. W plus 14, and then just distribute. And so what we could do is if we shifted everything over to the left, we would have w squared plus 28w plus 196, and then our 676 gets shifted over to the right. All right, and these two can come together like terms, and we can bring this guy over to there, and so we'd end up with 2w squared plus 28w minus 480, all right, equals 0. And so first of all, dividing by 2, and so if we were to just divide everything by 2, we'd end up with w squared plus 14w minus 240 equals 0. So we are solving a quadratic. Setting it equal to 0 is our key here. We have done that. So now factoring is a great way to identify the solutions here. So we do our factoring. We have a w in the front and a 0 on the right. Two things that multiply to negative 240 and add to 14. So you could play around with that a little bit, but plus 24 and minus 10. So we take a look at this, and having a width of negative 24, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but having a width of 10, that makes some sense. So we'll cross this out as a possible solution, and we'll say a width of 10, and I'm just going to continue on here. I didn't give myself quite enough room. So w equals 10. So that makes sense. So bottom line is when you have a quadratic, you end up with two solutions. And quite often one of them will make sense and one of them won't make sense, like a width of negative 24 centimeters. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But a width of 10 centimeters is great. Now we have to remember, we're not totally done with this question. If we look back, find the dimensions. So we found one of the dimensions, that is the width, but what about the length? So we look back and we said that our length was W plus 14. So we'll say length equals W plus 14. So 10 plus 14 is 24. So width is 10 centimeters, length is 24 centimeters, and there we go. We've got our solution right here.